Hi, both. Thanks for joining us today on our Business Gurus channel, where we will be discussing key business topics to help students grasp the most important elements of their course in preparation for their exams and future career. Let's get started.
If you've ever, say, bought a piece of clothing and had that nagging feeling it was made, well, maybe too cheaply.
Mm.
Or maybe you've gone for an option that's a bit less convenient because it just felt more ethical.
Yeah, absolutely. We all face those kinds of choices.
Well, you get this truth. You really can't have it all, can you? In life, and definitely in business, hitting one big goal often means, letting go of another.
Exactly. And that choice, that letting go, it isn't failure. It's just decision making.
Right. It's fundamental.
Precisely. And we're talking about something unavoidable in the business world today. Compromise isn't really optional anymore. It's baked in.
So, our mission for you today is a deep dive into this very idea, trade-offs in business.
Hmm.
Our source material puts it pretty simply, actually.
Hmm.
Defines a trade-off as a compromise between one thing and another. Straightforward.
Yeah, sounds simple.
But the core of it, the real pinch point, is that central conflict.
Hmm.
How do you strike that necessary compromise between really pushing for profit, like aggressively maximizing it, and at the same time being ethical, being sustainable? The sources actually mention this goal to somehow balance things so everyone is happy.
Yes. So everyone is happy. That phrase, that's where it gets really complicated, isn't it?
Definitely.
Because when you unpack the source material, what you see are businesses just juggling these huge, often competing pressures. You've got financial returns, ethical conduct, and environmental impact, all pulling in different directions.
Okay, so before we dive into the specific people like making these demands.
Yeah, the stakeholders.
Exactly. We should probably clarify the landscape of this conflict because it's not just one big messy fight, is it? The sources seem to break it down.
That's a really good point. The synthesis is crucial. The sources basically identify two main arenas, two critical areas where these unavoidable trade-offs happen.
Okay, what are they?
Well, first, there's the really fundamental one, the trade-off between profit and ethics.
The classic dilemma.
Pretty much. It's that internal struggle. Say a company decides, okay, we're only going to source raw materials from suppliers known for fair wages, safe conditions.
Yeah.
The ethical high road.
Right.
Well, that material, those inputs, they're almost certainly going to cost more, sometimes a lot more than getting them from some low-cost producer somewhere else.
And that cost difference, it's not trivial, is it? Directly hits the profit margin on every single thing you sell.
Absolutely.
You choose local, fair wage labor over maybe cheaper, faster overseas options. You're making a very specific trade-off. It's like a dollar for dollar exchange almost.
Yeah.
Principle for profit.
Exactly. That's the first big one. Then the second major conflict area, just as important today, maybe even more visible sometimes.
Which is?
It's the trade-off between environment, sustainability, and profit.
Ah, okay. The green factor.
Right. And this often shows up in big long-term investments. Maybe the business has to upgrade its entire delivery fleet to electric vehicles.
Huge cost.
Huge cost. Or invest in a really complex zero-waste packaging system. Again, expensive and complicated.
And those kinds of infrastructure changes, they need massive capital up front, right? Which, again, eats directly into this year's profitability.
Precisely. It's a trade-off. You're compromising those near-term financial gains, maybe shareholder returns right now, for something longer-term, like planetary health, or, frankly, just maintaining a good reputation.
So you see these two big categories constantly framing decisions. Ethics versus profit and environment versus profit.
Yeah, they're the battlegrounds. And what's really fascinating, I think, is that while leadership makes the final call, these conflicts aren't just happening in a vacuum like some philosophical debate. They're driven by actual people, specific groups, stakeholders, who often want fundamentally different, even incompatible things.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. The stakeholder showdown, you could call it.
Yeah, good name for it.
We've basically identified three key players or archetypes from the sources whose desires seem inherently opposed, like systemically opposed.
Understanding their power dynamics is key to understanding the final compromise, whatever it is.
So who's first?
Well, let's start with the person actually, running the show,
Yeah.
the business owner.
Okay.
The sources are quite specific. They state her intention. She wants to run the business in the most ethical way possible.
Which sounds great. A noble starting point, right? Principles first.
It does. But almost in the same breath, the sources bring it right back down to earth.
Yeah.
That same ethical commitment, it will be expensive.
Ah, there's the catch.
Always a catch. So when the owner decides, okay, we're going with the ethical supplier, or we're improving working conditions beyond the minimum, she's consciously raising the cost base for the whole operation.
Whether that's paying more for sustainable packaging, like you said, or implementing better workers' rights, maybe above the legal requirement, it costs.
Exactly. Now, contrast that internal ethical drive
Yeah.
with the demand from group number two, the shareholder.
Ah, the money people.
Pretty much. The source material is laser-focused here. The shareholder, singular interest. He wants large profits. Why? So he can get paid a large dividend at the end of the year.
It's all about the return.
All about the return. The sources even mention the shareholder twice, emphasizing this focus.
And that demand, it's not just a nice to have, is it? For many public companies, maximizing shareholder value is like a legal duty, a fiduciary responsibility.
That's a critical point. The shareholder isn't necessarily asking for a better world in this context. They're demanding a return on their investment, period.
So if the owner's choice to be ethical, the choice that costs more,
Right.
if that cuts into the profits available for dividends,
Then the shareholder pressure becomes immediate, intense even. They prioritize that immediate financial return. The dividend payment is their benchmark for success.
so there's the direct conflict. The owner's ethical choice costs money, which is money that cannot then be paid out as dividends to the shareholders.
That's the tension right there,
Yeah.
crystallized. The cost of doing good versus the demand for returns.
Okay, so owner versus shareholder. Now, you mentioned a third force.
Yes. The third major player, often external, and one that can really dictate the pace of change, especially on the environmental front.
And that is,
The pressure group campaigner.
the activists.
Exactly. Their demands are very specific, usually planet-focused. They want businesses to trade in ways that, simply put, do not harm the planet.
No pollution, sustainable resources, that kind of thing.
Precisely. And that seemingly straightforward demand, don't harm the planet, it has huge operational consequences.
Let me guess. It costs more.
You got it.
Yeah.
The sources note, just like with the ethical choices, this environmental focus may cost the business more. Pressure groups push hard on resource use,
Yeah.
carbon footprints, waste management.
All things that often require expensive changes to how a business operates.
Absolutely. But here's the interesting thing about the pressure group's power.
Yeah.
They operate outside the company's direct financial structure. They don't own shares. They don't usually care about the dividend size.
They care about the issue, the planet, or the specific ethical concern.
Right. And their power comes from public opinion. They can organize boycotts, protests, social media campaigns, things that can cause immediate and sometimes catastrophic reputational damage if the business doesn't listen or respond.
So they wield a different kind of weapon, not financial withdrawal, but public shaming, essentially.
In a way, yes. And this is key. The pressure group effectively imposes an unseen cost, or maybe a potential future cost, on the business.
How do you mean?
Well, if the business ignores their demands, say, keeps polluting or using unsustainable plastics, they might save money on operations today,
Sure, short-term gain.
but they risk incurring massive future costs.
Yeah.
Bad PR, maybe legal fees down the line, regulatory fines, loss of customers who care about these issues.
So that risk forces the business to take their demands seriously, even if it costs money now.
Exactly. It forces them to weigh the immediate cost of compliance against the potential future cost of noncompliance and reputational damage.
Okay, so if we step back and look at the whole picture, we've got the owner wanting costly ethics. We've got the campaigner demanding costly planet protection.
Right.
And then we've got the shareholder demanding large, unimpeded profits to fuel those dividends.
You've laid it out perfectly. 3 sets of demands, fundamentally pulling in different directions.
And there's just no simple calculation, is there? No spreadsheet formula that lets a business satisfy all three completely at the same time.
Absolutely not. It's inherently a situation of tension and compromise. The tension comes precisely because every decision requires the business to choose, essentially, which pressure point to address.
Right. Do they keep the shareholders happy with big dividends this quarter, but risk, say, a damaging expose from an environmental group next quarter?
Or do they invest heavily in that green technology, satisfy the campaigners, accept the higher costs, and then face angry shareholders complaining about lower dividend?
It's a constant balancing act.
It is. And the ultimate strategic decision, whatever it is, it's always an exercise in allocating limited resources, money, time, attention. Maybe more importantly, managing expectations.
Managing expectations. That's interesting. So the business is kind of deciding who's going to be the most satisfied stakeholder.
Or maybe, sometimes, it's about deciding who they can afford to make the least unhappy.
Huh. Right. Damage limitation.
Sometimes, yes. Think
Yeah.
about it. When a business chooses, say, environmentally friendly packaging that costs more,
Yeah.
they're effectively making a calculation. They're saying, okay, we believe the long-term benefit of neutralizing the threat from pressure groups, maintaining our brand image, maybe attracting green consumers,
Yeah.
that outweighs the short-term hit to profits and the potential grumbling from shareholders.
So that specific decision is a conscious trade-off. They're trading some financial security or maximizing profit for reputational security.
Precisely. It's always a trade.
So to kind of wrap up the main insight here, the core takeaway seems to be that pretty much every major strategic decision involves this kind of zero-sum game, doesn't it? Between these three groups, at least.
That's a good way to put it.
The business has to choose who gains in this specific instance. The owner pushing for ethics, the shareholder demanding profit, or the campaigner focused on the planet. And by definition, if one gains the others, well, they get less.
They have to accept a lesser outcome for that particular decision. And the next decision might tilt the balance differently.
Which brings us back to that phrase from the start, that stated goal from the sources. Find a compromise so everyone is happy.
Yeah, and we've kind of established that true universal happiness in a trade-off situation is basically impossible, right?
Seems like it. Someone always feels they didn't get everything they wanted.
Given the huge influence these pressure groups can wield and that constant underlying demand for shareholder profit, businesses have to have some way of weighing these things up, some kind of internal calculation.
Okay, so maybe that leads us to the final thought for you, the listener, to mull over.
Yeah.
If we accept that compromise is necessary and universal happiness is off the table, when a business makes a decision that does cost them profit for ethical reasons or environmental ones, they must be calculating the cost of not doing it, right? The cost of inaction.
They have to be.
So the question is, what specific things beyond just, good PR are they weighing? What non-monetary metrics are they using to balance the risk from an external pressure group against that fundamental internal pressure from shareholders?
That's the crux of it. How do you actually quantify the value of reputation or ethical conduct or environmental stewardship against the hard numbers of profit and dividends? How does a company define a successful compromise when inevitably someone feels shortchanged?
Something to think about. How do businesses really make those impossible choices?
Thanks to both of you for joining us today. You've been listening to the Business Gurus. Let's now hand it over to you. What further questions do you have based on what we've discussed so far? Leave a comment and we'll get back to you right away. If you haven't already, hit that follow for more business tips.